If you've got tight hamstrings, then I promise you this is going to be the most helpful video that you've ever watched. I'm going to take those piano wires of yours that you got running up and down the back of your leg, and we're going to fix them and loosen them up in the next 22 days. What's up guys, it's Cavalier, AthleanX.com. So today I get to put on my PT hat and do one of the things I like to do the most, and that's to help you to fix issues, especially those common issues that plague a lot of us. And when it comes to tight hamstrings, a lot of us are dealing with them. So what if I told you I can help you to fix them in the next 22 days? That's right, I'm going to give you a game plan that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to dramatically loosen your hamstrings, and we're going to have ways to objectively measure that. It's also going to instill a stretching habit that you can do and find very easy to fit into your schedule, no matter how busy you are, and we're going to get the job done. So with that said, guys, I want to start breaking down what we're going to do day by day to make sure that by the end of this, your hamstrings are feeling a hell of a lot looser than they are right now. All right, so before we even get started here, there is one disclaimer that I want to make sure that I make as a physical therapist especially, and that is, if you look like this, then you likely have a condition called anterior pelvic tilt. And you would have tight hamstrings in this condition, but it's not because the hamstrings are short, it's because your pelvis is pulling your hamstrings into a position where they feel tight. So what I would advise is not to run into doing these stretches to fix that problem, but rather to go over to that video and fix your anterior pelvic tilt the way I show you there. And so with that said, if you feel hamstring tightness and you don't have that shelf that you can rest a glass of water on above your ass, then you're in the right place. And what we have to do is we have to start where we always do in our popular 22-day series, and that is with a test. And this test occurs actually before you even start, on day 0. And what I want you to do is get yourself up against a wall like this. Lay on the floor and extend the non-testing leg until it's flat against the wall. Now, with the other leg, you're going to pull it back to a position of 90 degrees of knee flexion and hip flexion. Not too much and not too little. You want to get right at about 90 degrees. From here, all you're going to do is straighten your knee out. And as you're doing this, make sure that you're trying to keep your toes always pointed to the ceiling rather than pulling them back towards you. Now from here, I want you to basically visualize a point on the wall that lines up with the top of your toe. And this is going to give us a chance to remeasure later on day 22. Now it's a little bit easier if you have a wall that would allow you to have a landmark that you can actually find a little bit more easily. But either way, all you have to do is stand up, make that mark on the wall, put a piece of tape if need be, and you're going to come back to that when you do remeasure on the last day. But now we've got to get to the action. And we're going to break this down over the course of 3 7-day blocks. So day 1 through 7 will be block 1, day 8 through 14 will be block 2, and day 15 through 21 will be block 3. Each block is going to consist of ideally 2 sessions, one in the morning and one at night. But before you get worried and think, I'm not going to have time at all to do this, I promise you we're talking about just minutes in the morning and minutes at night. The reason for the split is that we want to focus separately on our dynamic work and our static work, because we know that at each time of the day we can have a better impact if we do it that way. So we're going to start the day off with our dynamic work, and there's going to be just 2 stretches. One that keeps the knee straight and one that has the knee bent. And the reason for that is we want to hit both functions of the hamstrings. They don't just flex the knee. They help to extend the hip. So if they can function to pull the hip back into extension, we want to stretch them at some point with the hip flexed. At the same time, we have to focus on the exercises that straighten the knee out. So that's what we're going to do each and every day throughout all of these blocks. And at night, we're going to shift our focus once again to the passive stretching. And the reason for this is that we get a better bang for our buck when we perform our static stretches right before bed. Especially if we train, our body tends to heal itself a little bit shorter overnight. So by implementing these stretches right before we go to bed, we tend to get a little bit less of that shortening and tightening and have a better long-term impact. And so with that said, let's start breaking down the stretches and exercises that you're going to do starting in block 1. Every morning on days 1 through 7, you're going to do the following 2 exercises. Number 1, a leg swing. 2 different versions of this. You're going to stand against a wall and only go so high as you can that you can still maintain a relatively straight knee. Then we turn and face the wall and we do a side to side. And here we're going to try to actually turn our toe outward and turn our toe inward. This is good because it helps us to get both medial and lateral hamstrings a little bit more specifically, but still in this dynamic way. You're going to do 3 sets of 8 repetitions in each direction on each leg. We move on to the second dynamic stretch of the day, and as is often the case, the exercise is oftentimes the test. What we did on day 0 actually now becomes something we can implement for the first 7 days here to try to increase the flexibility of our hamstrings. This is the active knee extension exercise. Now you don't have to do it up against the wall, you can simply do it down on the floor, but the principle of the movement is the same. In this case, you try to hold that position for about 3 to 5 seconds, you release, and you go back and you repeat. You're going to do this for a total of 3 sets of 6 reps on each leg, and your work for the morning is done, just like that. But of course, we have one more session at night, and that's where we're going to focus on that passive static stretching. As I said, it's going to help us to increase those hamstrings flexibility. And the first exercise we're going to do here is simply a standing low hamstring stretch. And the idea here is to make sure you're doing this properly, because a lot of us will simply fold over when we're trying to stretch our hamstring, but that's not actually getting directly at the hamstring. It's involving way too much low back. Instead, focus on getting as tall as possible to establish at least a temporary anterior pelvic tilt, not one of those structural ones we talked about before, to increase the engagement of the hamstrings and get them in a prime position for stretch. Now, I simply just want you to reach your hand out until you can feel your hamstrings light up. You're just going to simply hold this position for 45 seconds. You're going to do 2 to 3 sets of 45 seconds on each leg, maintaining the high chest and that slight arch in your low back for this to be effective. And then we do the last stretch here on the floor. That's the knee bent position. And this one is the knee to chest exercise. And all you're going to do is lay back and pull back into your chest as far as you can. You're going to feel this stretch a lot higher up in the hamstrings, almost to where they connect on the pelvis. You hold it for 2 to 3 sets for 45 seconds on each leg, and your work for the day is done. It's this exact schedule that you're going to perform for those first 7 days until we switch up the block on day 8. And speaking of day 8, that's the beginning of our second training block, the one that we're going to repeat all the way up through day 14. And we start with our knee straight exercise, the dynamic downward facing dog. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actively drive my knees, which are naturally bent here to start, into as straight a position as possible, ideally all the way straight. I'm going to perform this as a set of 8 and perform 3 to 4 sets in total of the exercise. Which brings me to my second and final exercise of the morning, and this is the wall hinge. This is that knee bent focus. So we're going to stand with our butt against the wall, feet away from the wall, and have the knees slightly bent and turned out. And the idea here is to get a really nice stretch on the biceps femoris, and we can do that by getting into a good hinge position, maintaining that anterior tilt and arch in the low back as I lean down. And I have the ability to work on that mid-belly muscle tissue quality because my hands are free here, and I can work on doing cross-friction massage across the muscle belly during the stretch. Again, we perform this as 3 to 4 sets of 8 repetitions, and your work for the morning is done. Which leads us to our pre-bed static stretching portion of our second block, and it starts with the wall plant stretch. And here I actually get to take advantage of the wall as I use it to help me to accentuate the stretch that I had from even block 1. I place one foot up against the wall, actually this time incorporating a little bit of calf into this, which is going to also be beneficial since it crosses the knee. And I'm going to get my chest to approach the wall and have the wall to actually climb up to assist in that process. Once again, we're holding this for 45 seconds, 2 to 3 sets on each leg. From there, we hit the floor and we want to work on that knee bent position, and we use a band now or a towel to assist. The idea being, whatever I can pull actively with my hands is going to be increased because of the leverage the towel provides in this stretch. So we're stepping our game up once again to allow ourselves to get that deeper stretch. 2 to 3 sets once again for 45 seconds. We do this for the entire block. And so on day 15, we begin our third and final block, and the first exercise is the tabletop side-to-side stretch. What's interesting here, as we've been doing over the course of the 21 days, is we continue to up the ante of the stretch, this time including the adductors a bit. You're going to want to have your hands parallel to the floor, so whatever surface you choose, you might have to be a little bit higher or lower to accommodate that position. At this point, what you're going to do is just simply let your hands ride back and forth on that surface as you do so, rotating your upper torso. What that does is it allows that stretch to carry down through the hamstrings, but we get a little bit of a medial lateral shift because of the rotation from top to bottom. We're going 3 to 4 sets of 8 repetitions here in each side. Left to right equals 1 rep. Again, we have our second exercise, and this time it is the Bulgarian hamstring stretch. This one leg position is going to allow us to focus a little bit more directly on that single hamstring so we can really focus on just one side at a time. Go 3 sets of each leg, 8 repetitions, as we've been doing all along. Which brings us to the nighttime portion of our final stretching block. Our static focus here is going to start with a doorway stretch. You're going to sit with your hip right next to the door jamb. At that point, lay on your back and lift the leg that's closest to the door up against the jamb itself. And by this point in time, you're likely going to have a much easier time getting your leg straight than had you have tried this when we first started. That's a good thing. Improvement's always good. But now I want to make this even more of an intense stretch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach through with my opposite hand, grab onto the back side of that door jamb, and pull myself even further into a stretch. You're going to hold this for 45 seconds as always, 2 to 3 sets on each leg. And with that, we go back to the final stretch of the session. Once again, maintaining that knee bent position with the hip in high flexion, actually done in a high position here. We call this the standing high hamstring stretch. So instead of focusing on keeping the foot low and maintaining a straight knee, here we're going to bring this up as high as we possibly can, and we're going to lean into it. And as always, you've got to maintain that slight arch in your low back when you do this, rather than folding your pelvis underneath you. Again, we do 2 to 3 sets of 45 seconds, really feeling that deep stretch right up under your cheek if you're doing this right. And just like that, guys, in 22 days, I promise you, if you can get consistent with these stretches, you're going to feel and see a difference very, very quickly. One of the things people do is they give up on stretching far too soon because they don't see the impact that they want to see or feel the impact that they want to feel because they're oftentimes not doing it right. We know the hamstring has 2 major functions. We have to hit both of them, and we know that a muscle can be stretched both dynamically and statically, and we're going to do those as well. This entire 22-day plan is laid out here for you guys step by step. I'm showing you the screenshots so you can make sure you can take them and implement them starting today. If you guys found this video helpful, make sure you leave your comments and thumbs up below. As always, guys, we put the science back in strength, and I give you the stuff that works. If you're looking for all of our step-by-step plans, they're all available over at AthleanX.com. In the meantime, let me know what you want me to cover. I'll do my best to do that for you. And if you haven't done so, click subscribe, turn your notifications so you never miss any of the videos that I put up on this channel. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.